York's classic rock, Q1043.
Morning. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Title IX just turned 50 weeks ago. Now, Title IX is the law best known for its role in gender equality in athletics and preventing sexual harassment on campuses. So there was a push 50 years ago for equality for women in sports on campuses. However, this has not translated at all to equality when it comes to professional sports, when you're out of college. And I think it was best reflected in the years-long fight for the U.S. women's national soccer team, winning World Cups, getting more fans than the U.S. men's team, and just vastly underpaid. And finally, this year, they won equality. But it took years. So joining me this morning, because we're going to be talking about equality in pro sports, for women's sports. Joining me this morning, Madison Packer. She's the captain of the Metropolitan Riveters of the National Women's Hockey League based in South Brunswick, and also Joe Galasso. He is the co-founder of Baker Street Behavioral Health. He is a sports performance psychologist. So, Madison, I have to tell you, I'm a hockey fan. I'm a Devils fan. I never heard of your team, I'm sorry to say.
Devils fan, that's a rough go these days.
Yeah, it is. It's a struggle. Yeah, this is true. This is true. So tell me where we stand. Tell me your frustration. Tell me where we're at it from your vantage point as a pro athlete.
Yeah, I think it's obviously hard. You touched on some key points with the U.S. women's soccer team. We just have to scrap and claw for every inch that we take. And it's been that what has longly been considered a male sport, hockey. I grew up, I was often the only girl in the rink, and we've come a long way, we're going on our 8th season now. Just the reach, the fans, the resources and the sponsors have grown year over year, but it's hard because people look at women's sports and they consider it a risk. And we're not reaching out to men's teams. We're not reaching out to men's leagues and asking for handouts or favors. And you have seen the WNBA has done a great job of growing their brand and making a name for themselves. But women are, we're tenacious, and we know that it's going to be a hard fight. And it kind of makes it more fun when you get to the top and you get to look back and know that you worked for everything that you got.
Where can people see you play?
So we play at American Dream, which is kind of cool. It's a huge mall in Jersey, but it's more, we like to call it an entertainment facility with some retail space. So we practice there. We haven't announced yet where our games are going to be, but the rumor mill is that they may be there. So we're excited. We used to play games at Barnabas, right next to the Prudential Center in Newark, but just as a female athlete in a sport that's continuing to grow, finding ways to get creative and keep drawing in new fans. And we've had a really good push with American Dream. So we're looking forward to continuing our relationship with them.
You mentioned the WNBA, and I heard one athlete say, if this was LeBron James who was being held in Russia rather than Brittany Griner, he'd be home already.
Yeah, I heard something similar. And then I also saw an interview with Steph Curry, and I think he hit the nail right on the head that we can sit and draw comparisons and parallels, but the biggest fact is that there's an American citizen stuck in a pretty uncomfortable situation really far from home. And regardless of who it is or why they're there, she needs to be home. So it'd be nice if we could get some more attention and more conversation around it. I'm sure that she's scared and wants to be back here. And it's unfortunate that we're drawing parallels and comparisons, because regardless of who it is, she deserves to be home. And I hope that we make some progress in the next couple of weeks in seeing that happen.
Joe Galasso, he is the co-founder of Baker Street Behavioral Health. He's a sports performance psychologist, and you have teamed with Metropolitan Riveters. Can you explain what it is you do?
Sure. So I'm a psychologist by training, right? Clinical psychologist, sports psychologist. And I run a pretty big practice in New Jersey. And what we do for the last couple of decades is we've worked with professional athletes. Over the last couple of years, we've moved into the space of working with female teams because we're really trying to push our agenda of health equality, right? And health equity. And while we look at sports mainly from the vantage of skill, right? And how do we try to make everything equal from maybe ticket sales? I think our position's a little different in that health equity is something that we could bring to the table fairly easily, right? Medical care is medical care. And that's something that we could bring to the table. That shouldn't be different whether you're a female or a male. And our team has been trying to raise the bar at what we bring to these teams. So when we had the opportunity to work with the Riveters, it seemed like a perfect fit, and it has been, right? And what we've been very, very fortunate to run into is a captain that's so at the forefront and so welcoming to have a team of specialists like we're bringing to the table in the locker room, right? So we're really able to raise the bar of what's offered in this league. It's great.
Madison, how has Baker Street Behavioral Health helped you personally and your team as a team?
It's been an invaluable resource for us. I think that just having people to talk to, understanding the value of mental health resources, counselors, team training, the activities that we've been able to do for team bonding and things has been huge. And I was talking to Dr. Joe. We utilize their resources, I think, more than any team that works with them, but it's something that we haven't ever had available to us. And so being able to, go to the rink, practice with a clear head and have people that that you can talk to who are helping you get better mentally away from the rink, because that's, in my opinion, more than 50% of the equation is what's going on between the ears. And it's not something that you can go into a gym necessarily and work on. And so to have people who are trained in that space, who help you train your brain, who help you go to the rink and be prepared is invaluable. And we've seen other teams across the league who are like, hey, wait a minute, why don't we have these resources? And it's a huge thing right now in all sports, male and female, mental health awareness, and just talking about it and knowing that everyone in your locker room is going through something similar. And that's a big theme in our locker room, is that we're very open and honest about how we're feeling. And so to have professional resources available to us is invaluable.
Explain, what are some of these issues that you have that you need help with or you need support for?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just, everyone has a bad day. There's a lot of pressure on professional athletes. There's a lot of things that you have to balance. You spend a lot of time on the road, which people look at professional athletes and they're like, oh, that's so cool. They're doing this, that, and the other. Well, I've got a family, I have a wife, a son, a baby on the way. You spend a lot of time away from those people. And how do you balance those relationships? How do you work through, I missed the first time my son went sledding. I missed the first time he walked. Like, how do you balance, okay, what I'm doing away from here, I'm missing this at home. How does that make sense in my mind? Having people to talk to about it. And also having other people in the locker room who are also using those resources, who are aware of people's mental health, either struggles or just where they're at mentally, and being open and honest in that conversation, and having that connection with your teammate and knowing that, hey, I'm here for you if you're having a bad day, or, it's okay to not come to the rink today if you're just not feeling right. And that's a huge thing that hasn't always existed in sports. And I think across the board, we're getting better at recognizing that people need that space and grace to take care of themselves, because it makes them perform better.
I am speaking this morning with Madison Packer, the captain of the Metropolitan Riveters in South Brunswick. They are with the National Women's Hockey League. And also Joe Galasso, he's the co-founder of Baker Street Behavioral Health. He's a sports performance psychologist. So how does this work, Dr. Joe? Are you, when are you spending time with the team? Is it at your facility? Do you go to them? How does this all work?
Sure. It's a really dynamic process, right? We get to be, part of the team. We get to show up to practice. We get to come to games. We have players that come to the office. It really depends on what's going on. It's not like traditional therapy, right? Where you think people are just coming every day, once a week, for 1 hour a week. Sure, maybe they have a very specific symptom-based issue that they really want to work on. We could treat that, right? And we could do that. But if it's a performance enhancing strategy-based scenario, like we want to increase cohesiveness in the locker room, well, then maybe it's more didactic, and we're going to come and we're going to have the whole team together in the locker room, and we're going to meet for 15-20 minutes and talk about anxiety reduction, and we're going to do visualization, and we're going to do team building exercises, right? Before the playoffs, we got the whole team together and we went mini golfing, right? Just to kind of reduce stress and just to really build cohesiveness and to get people off the ice and working together, right? We wanted to do something creative and keep everybody a little off balance, right? We might work just with the coaches, right? Just and talk about what their vision is. Prior to the draft, we'll talk about what the team's vision is for who we need to draft. So our role can be very dynamic.
It's interesting. I think I saw a recent study that said people who are in more individualized sports like tennis and golf actually have more stress and higher levels of anxiety than those involved in team pro sports. What's your view of that? Is that true?
I could certainly see how that's true, but I mean, in the heat of competition, I think stress is stress. I don't want to diminish any one person's experience, but I could tell you, and certainly I think Madison could weigh in. I think given the heat of battle at any moment, competitive sports is stressful.
Madison?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, how when you're in a team and you're one of many, whether the game goes well or goes poorly, you have another group of people to share that experience with. When you're the only one out on the tennis court and you don't play well, you're the only person you can blame for that in the moment is yourself, whether that's right or wrong. So having a team makes it a little easier sometimes, because whether you're high or low, you have people to share that experience with and people to talk through it with. But to Dr. Joe's point, I mean, stress is stress, and we all have difficult days. So,
I'm just wondering, Dr. Joe, does Baker Street Behavioral Health also work in high schools and colleges on that level as well? Because I mean, there you have the dual stress. I mean, certainly Madison, you have the dual stress as a parent and somebody who's married, but when you have that stress of, oh my God, getting into college, am I going to get a scholarship? How am I going to, do good in this test? And then you have,
Certainly,
right. And the stress of the helicopter parents.
Certainly we get a lot of up and coming athletes. We get a lot of weekend warriors, people who just want to perform better on the golf course, right? Just for themselves, or on the tennis court. We get a lot of, semi-pro athletes. We get, a lot of people who are retiring from professional athletics that don't know how to deal with their identity post sports. And then we get a lot of college athletes who are transitioning to the workforce, who may not be going on to a career in athletics too, who have known nothing but, athletics their entire life, and are transitioning to a different life, right? So sports plays a role in our life throughout our lives. It's a lifespan issue. So certainly we see it throughout our practice at all stages of development.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we are out of time. Just tell us, Dr. Joe, how could people contact Baker Street Behavioral Health?
Sure, you can find us easily on our website at www.bakerstreetpsych.com.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Madison Packer, and good luck to the Metropolitan Riveters of the National Women's Hockey League. They are based in South Brunswick, and you could see them at American Dream. And thank you, Dr. Joe Galasso. If you missed any part of this conversation, download the iHeartRadio app. It's free. And then all of my interviews live on with the podcast Sonstein Sessions. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning on the Jim Kerr Rock and Roll Morning Show, Q104.3.
New York's classic rock, Q104.3.